Jai Srimad Paramahamsa Parivajikacharya Stotra Sata His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavan Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shamakum Radhakum Giri Govardhan Ki Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Gangamai Ki Yamunamai Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Tulsi Devi Ki Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Nita Gaur Premanandi. All glory to you, Samal devotees. All glory to you, Samal devotees. All glory to you, Samal devotees. All glory to Shri Guru Gauranga. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. So sometimes we have these days where the kirtan is so ecstatic that when you're the Bhagavatam speaker, you don't know how you could compare to that. So in this particular instance, both the Guru Puja and the Jairana Madhava were so ecstatic that I feel my class might be a bit of a buzzkill. But anyway, I'll try to say something. I'll just say, let's give us all time to catch our breath and while I'm doing my class, and then afterwards we can get back to the enthusiastic chanting at some point later today. Does anyone want to pretend to be Lolita and fill this up? All right. Super bravature there. All right, so today we're going to be reading from Canto 4, Chapter 21. Today we're on Text 26, and we're continuing the instructions by Maharaj Prithu. So Maharaj Prithu is speaking to his citizens, and we're continuing on with that today. So, Yuyam Tadan Modadvam Pitri Deva Shayo Malahai Kartum Shastur Anugyantus Tulyam Yat Pretya Yat Palam Yuyam Taranimodadvam Pitrideva Shayomala Kartu Shastur Anugyantus Tulyam Yat Pretya Yatat Palam Yuyam Taranimodadvam Pitrideva Shayomala Kartu Shastur Anugyantus Tulyam Yat Pretya Tat Palam Patient.
Yuyam Tad Anumodadvam Varshayo Malaha.
Varshayo Malaha.
Shastur Anugyatus.
Shastur Anugyatus.
Sulyam Yad Pretya Tatparam.
Sulyam Yad Pretya Tatparam. Yuyam Taranumodadvam. Yuyam Taranumodadvam. Varshayo Malaha. Varshayo Malaha. Shastur Anugyatus. Shastur Anugyatus. Sulyam Yad Pretya Tatparam. Sulyam Yad Pretya Tatparam.
Yuyam Taranumodadvam.
Yuyam Taranumodadvam. Varshayo Malaha. Artu Shastur Anugyatus. Sulyam Yad Pretya Tatparam.
Yam Taranum Dadvam.
Yuyam Taranumodadvam.
Varshayo Malaha.
Varshayo Malaha.
Shasturanyasthu.
Artu Shastur Anugyatus.
Sulyam Yad Pretya Tatparam.
Sulyam Yad Pretya Tatparam. Yuyam Taranumodadvam. Yuyam Taranumodadvam. Varshayo Malaha. Varshayo Malaha. Artu Shastur Anugyatus. Sulyam Yad Pretya Tatparam. Sulyam Yad Pretya Tatparam.
Okay, word for word. Yuyam.
Yuyam.
All you respectable persons who are present here.
All you respectable persons who are present here.
Tuts. That's. Anumodadvam.
Anumodadvam.
Kindly approve of my proposal.
Kindly approve of my proposal.
Pitri. Persons coming from Pitraloka.
Persons coming from Pitraloka.
Deva.
Deva.
Persons coming from the heavenly planets.
Persons coming from the heavenly planets.
Rishayaha.
Vishaya.
Great sages and saintly persons.
Great sages and saintly persons.
Amalaha. Those who are cleansed of all sinful activities.
Those who are cleansed of all sinful activities.
Kartuhu.
Kartu.
The performer.
The performer.
Shashtuhu.
Shashtu.
The order giver.
The order giver.
Anugyantu.
Anugyatus.
Of the supporter.
Of the supporter.
Tulyam.
Tulyam.
Equal.
Equal.
Yat.
Yat.
Which.
Which.
Pratya.
Pratya.
After death.
After death.
Tat.
Tat.
That.
That.
Palam.
Palam.
Result.
Result.
Translation. I request all the pure-hearted demigods, forefathers, and saintly persons to support my proposal. For after death, the result of an action is equally shared by its doer, its director, and its supporter. Please repeat. I request all the pure-hearted demigods,
Request all the pure-hearted demigods,
forefathers,
forefathers,
and saintly persons
saintly persons
to support my proposal.
to support my proposal.
For after death,
For after death,
the result of an action
the result of an action
is equally shared by its doer,
is equally shared by its doer,
its director,
its director,
and its supporter.
and its supporter.
Purport by His Divine Grace, His Bhaktivedanta Swami Shatapad. The government of Prithvi Maharaj was perfect because it was administered exactly according to the orders of the Vedic injunctions. Prithvi Maharaj has already explained that the chief duty of the government is to see that everyone executes his respective duty and is elevated to the platform of Krishna consciousness. The government should be so conducted that automatically one is elevated to Krishna consciousness. King Prithu, therefore, wanted his citizens to cooperate fully with him, for if they assented, they would enjoy the same profit as he after death. If Prithvi Maharaj, as a perfect king, were elevated to the heavenly planets, the citizens who cooperated by approving his methods would also be elevated with him. Since the Christian consciousness movement going on at the present moment is genuine, perfect, and authorized, and is following in the footsteps of Prithvi Maharaj, anyone who cooperates with this movement or accepts its principles will get the same result as the workers who are actively propagating Krishna consciousness. Om Ganatrinam Dishaganandana Shlakaya Chakshurumanitamina Tasma Shigurve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitamina Bhutale Swayam Rupakaramayam Didati Swaparantikam Vandeham Shiguru Shiyatapakamalam Shigurun Vaishnavam Shah Shri Rupam Sagartam Sagana Reganam Tambitam Tamtajibam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Prajna Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Ladita Shri Vishakambitam Shah Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jakapate Kopesha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namustate Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Harikri Vancha Kalpa Tarubhya Shah Kripa Sindhu Bevicha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishabhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Sari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, Prithvi Maharaj here is requesting his citizens, or actually everyone actually, the pure-hearted demigods, the forefathers, the saintly persons, to support his proposal. And what is his proposal? And since our memories tend to be very short in this age of Kali Yuga, for my own benefit, and hopefully for everyone else's, I'll remind you of that. We talked about that yesterday. Prithvi Maharaj said, "Therefore, my dear citizens, for the welfare of your king after his death, you should execute your duties properly in terms of your positions of Varna and Ashram, and should always think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead within your hearts. By doing so, you will protect your own interest and will bestow mercy upon your king for his welfare after death." So Prithvi Maharaj is telling his citizens to perform their duty, but the most important part, to always think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead within their hearts, and therefore they will benefit. And he's saying to them, I will also benefit. So actually in devotional service, everybody benefits. One of my very first services when I came to the temple was I started polishing the deity paraphernalia. So one of the first things somebody told me was that when you polish this deity paraphernalia, not only do you benefit, but all your gurus benefit as well. So that made me very enthusiastic. So I remember every day I was polishing that paraphernalia, going after it. So Prabhupada says in this purport here that Prithvi Maharaj has already explained that the chief duty of the government is to see that everyone executes his respective duty and is elevated to the platform of Krishna consciousness. So we've spoken about this in several classes over the past few weeks. Being a leader is actually no small deal. You know, in Kali Yuga, a lot of people want to move up the ranks and they want to be the big leader. They get a job. They can't wait to be the boss. Sometimes even in Krishna consciousness, you come in and people want to move up the ranks. I want to be the ashram leader, the temple commander. I want to be the temple president, things like this. They want some position. That can happen sometimes. And sometimes thinking can be, I want this position so that people will respect me. Maybe I'll be able to do more of what I want to do. The thinking can kind of be there in the back of one's head. I know one devotee had mentioned that when he first joined, immediately he wanted to hurry and get Brahman initiation because he said, I thought if I had the thread, people would then respect me within the temple. You know, all the bhaktas would listen to me. back in the day, they used to have this system where if you weren't initiated, he was telling me this, you were one strand of Tulsi around your neck. But once you took Diksha, you were 3 strands. Did anybody have that system in their temple? You remember that, yeah? So that's how you could tell who was initiated and who wasn't initiated. So this thinking can be there in Kali Yuga, because in Kali Yuga, there's a desire, one wants profit, distinction, and adoration. This is called the subtle sense gratification. We have the gross sense gratification and then the subtle sense gratification. But the actual leader has a big responsibility, because their duty is to see that the people underneath them are making advancement in Krishna consciousness. One time somebody who was temple president told me, he was talking about the responsibility of the temple president. He was saying, one of the biggest misconceptions is that people think if I become temple president, I will be able to do whatever I want to do and set whatever standard I want to set. He said that is the biggest illusion. It's actually much bigger than that. So Prithvi Maharaj, he's been behaving as this perfect king, showing this example, not only engaging in the citizens of Varnashram Dharma and their respective duties, but also engaging them in Krishna consciousness. And we don't have this. We don't have this today. People don't even know what Krishna consciousness is half the time. As I mentioned in my story, I didn't even know who Krishna was before I had met devotees. Never heard of him. Never heard of devotional service or anything like this. In the 12th canto, it describes what happens in Kali Yuga. And throughout Bhagavatam, we read about all these pious kings, but when we get to the first chapter of the 12th canto, then we start seeing the degradation. One king comes to the throne, and he's assassinated by his minister. His minister takes over, and then his son takes over. You don't see that before you get to the 12th canto. And it's because Krishna has already left, the Yadu dynasty has already left. And so Kali Yuga is able to fully take over. And then later in that chapter, you read that a Sudra later assassinated one of the kings, and then he took over and then installed his sons on the thrones. So then that begins the start of Sudras taking over positions of leadership. And generally, it's not recommended that laborers do this, because generally people that are laborers are prone to sense gratification. And to be a leader, you can't be thinking about your own sense gratification. You have to be thinking about the welfare of other people. So just like Krishna does. Therefore, the king is Krishna's representative. Krishna is caring about all the living entities. So therefore, the king, the leader, in whatever capacity, they also have to care about the people underneath them. So therefore, a system of devotional service has been given. And anyone who follows this will attain the same destination as the pious leader. So the leader gives a map. The leader could be the king, the guru, saying, come with me. We're all going back to Godhead. Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita. What, hand me that Bhagavad Gita? I meant to pull this up on my phone, but I forgot. I always forget what text this verse is. So Krishna explains here in Bhagavad Gita, very important verse. For those of you who are pundits, you probably already know what I'm about to say. Hira dharmasya glaner bhavati bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam sujamyaham. Whenever and wherever there's a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharat, and a predominant rise in irreligion, at that time I descend myself. So Krishna, he comes himself. Or Prabhupada explains in that purport, he sends his representative to guide the citizens in this process of devotional service so that they can make spiritual advancement. A leader must understand the rarity of the human form of life. Actually, Rishabdev, I think Ethan and I were talking about Rishabdev the other day. For some reason I had all my verses pulled up and my phone, there it goes, it's not working the way I wanted it to. So Rishabdev explains in his instructions, Guru nasadsyat, swajano nasadsyat. So Guru nasadsyat, that means Guru, spiritual master, should not become. Swajanaha, a relative, should not become. Pita nasad swajani nasadsyat. So father should not become. Daivam natat syan napatis chasad syan. Mother, a worshipful demigod. Na mochayed ya samupeta mritum. Unless he can deliver his descendants. One who cannot deliver his dependents from the path of repeated birth and death should never become a spiritual master, a father, a husband, a mother, or a worshipful demigod. And why is this? Because it's a very heavy statement, but these are all positions of leadership. So unless you're willing to work for the welfare of others, you have no business becoming a leader. Unless you're actually going to put the spiritual advancement of others in the forefront of your mind and take care of your dependents. Being a leader is not about getting your own sense enjoyment. It's not about getting people to do what you say. Many kings, you'll see these stories of these kings, 15, 1600s. They're in their palaces. They have all these feasts, all these ministers, people serving underneath them. It said actually when Henry VIII passed away, he was morbidly obese from all the feast he was eating. And of course, we know that he executed several of his wives. This is Kali Yuga leader. This is not Krishna conscious leader. So therefore, a real leader actually has this in mind. They're instructing people in this process of devotional service. And so in the same way, when Krishna came and he descended for the purpose of attracting all the living entities back to him, we can see that those who cooperated, they received benefit. So there's the story of when Krishna is entering into Mathura. And I'm sure you guys have read it. It's right after the prayers of Korah. And so when he's entering into Mathura, it's described all the citizens were running to see him. And the women, some of them weren't even dressed properly. Some of them only had one earring on, probably one shoe on, something like that. But yet they were all running to take darshan of Krishna, to see the Lord so enthusiastically. But not everyone cooperated. Well, I said while Krishna and Balaram were passing along, the first person they ran into? The washerman. So Krishna and Balaram, they ran into the washerman. And Krishna asked them for some nice clothing. Because you have to remember, Krishna and Balaram, they were coming from Vrindavan. So they were dressed like cowherd boys. And they were now in the city of Mathura. So they needed some nicer clothing. So they were giving this washerman opportunity to engage in devotional service for his own benefit. Because Krishna actually doesn't need anything we have to offer him. He's already got it. He's got millions and millions of devotees ready to serve him. But he wants to love. He wants to attract people back to him. And by doing this service to Krishna, we automatically become attracted. So therefore, he's giving this washerman this opportunity. And saying that it says here that he also promised that if the washerman would deliver the nicest dyed cloth to him, the washerman would become very happy and all good fortune would be his. Krishna was not a beggar, nor was he in need of clothing. But by this request, he indicated that everyone should be ready to offer Krishna whatever he wants. That is the meaning of Krishna consciousness. Unfortunately, this washerman was a servant of Kamsa. He could not appreciate the demand of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And why was this? Why could he not appreciate? Because of bad association. So we can see here how sadhu sangha is so important. Because bad association, whoever you hang out with, whatever mentality they have, that's the mentality that you are going to have. I've seen, if you're the type of person who doesn't curse a lot and you hang out with someone who curses a lot, you will start dropping F-bombs every single sentence. It is true. Same way, if you hang out with someone who's always complaining, you will start to complain about every situation. It happens because our minds are like that. It absorbs whatever we're associating with. This is why sometimes we're very enthusiastic in Christian consciousness and sometimes we're not, because it all has to do with what we're allowing our mind to associate with. So this washerman, because of his bad association, he didn't perform devotional service to the Lord. And he refused, and he said, how is it that you are asking for clothing which is meant for the king? But what is the duty of a king? The duty of the king is to serve Krishna. But yet, this washerman, he was ignorant of this. And so he refused. And he said, my dear boys, in the future, don't be so imprudent to ask for things which belong to the king. Otherwise, you will be punished by the government men. They will arrest you. They will punish you. And you will be in difficulty. I have practical experience of this fact. He is speaking like this, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so, anyway, on hearing this, we all know what Krishna did. What did Krishna do?
Removed his head.
So carefully removed the head from body with finger. So, but however, it gets happier. Because then after this, it's already happy. It's already happy because everyone gets the mercy of Krishna. But Krishna continued along. Krishna and Balaram, they went about their business. Of course, the washerman, he's in Krishna Leela. He was originally in Ram Leela before. He was the guy that was chastising his wife, saying, oh, Ram may take another woman back after she's been with another man, but I will not. And later that washerman took birth in Krishna Leela. So anyway, but that's a whole other topic for a whole other class. But later, as Krishna and Balaram were continuing, they passed by. Who's next?
The flower.
Florist.
Sudama?
Yeah, Sudama. Sudama is next.
There's 3 Sudamas in Krishna.
I know, right? So many S's too. Sudama, Subal. Anyway. So as soon as they reached the florist, and it said as soon as they reached the presence of his house, the florist immediately came out, and with great devotion fell down on his face to offer his respectful obeisances. He offered a nice seat to Krishna and Balaram, and he brought them flowers and betel nuts and all sorts of things like this. And my phone just turned off. But anyway. Hold on one second. So after he gave them all these nice gifts, so what did Krishna and Balaram do? So what's this florist doing, and why am I bringing this up? This is because the florist was cooperating with Krishna. In the same way, Prithvi Maharaj is asking his citizens to cooperate with him. So what was the result that this florist got?
Viciousness throughout his life, he got success in business, you got a great destination in his next life.
Yeah, you got all blessings from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then next chapter comes, Krishna and Balaram are continuing on to their journey, ultimately to kill Kamsa, but we're not quite there yet. Who do they run into next?
Kubja.
Kubja.
Oh, Kubja.
They ran into Kubja, the hunchback. And what does she have? Sandalwood pulp, right. So Kubja, the hunchback, not very attractive looking. But she has some sandalwood pulp. So she offers whatever she has to Krishna, the sandalwood pulp. Krishna then straightens her. She becomes very beautiful. And she's not quite pure in this moment. She has, I guess you'd say, I don't want to say she's devotee, but she has this desire to, kind of enjoy with Krishna. So Krishna later fulfills that desire, and ultimately she achieves liberation. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that when one cooperates in this path of Krishna consciousness, they get all auspiciousness, and ultimately all these individuals, they achieve the same destination as Krishna. So, but Krishna is so merciful that Even for people who are not pure devotees, are not, maybe you don't have a position in the Krishna's eternal pastimes just yet. Krishna is so kind that he gives one a path to come back to him, a gradual path. So Kirtaneshwar brought up on Sunday that Krishna, first he tells Arjuna, if one can just try to fix your mind upon me and always think of me. But if one cannot do that, then what should one do? Follow rules and regulations of devotional service. Perform sadhana bhakti. And then Krishna says, even if you're unable to do this, what should you do? Sadhu, what does that mean?
Follow the practice. They should not follow the regulations.
All right, help our buddy out here. Who knows? Beside me, who's cheating because I had the book.
Not follow the practice of.
If you cannot follow the rules and regulations, then however, if you're unable to do that, then you should work for me. Because by working, you will become to this perfectional stage. But Krishna says later, if you cannot even take to this practice, what should you do? Engage yourself in the cultivation of knowledge. Better than knowledge, however, is meditation, and better than meditation is renunciation of the fruits of action. For by such renunciation, one can attain peace of mind. So just give up your attachment. So really, there's no excuse not to engage in something. Krishna is trying to make it as easy as possible. To give no matter what level you're at, you can make advancement. You can follow this path and ultimately achieve the supreme destination. So when I went to take darshan of Giriraj yesterday, I told Kirtaneshwar this story, so I will tell all of you now. So I was telling him that, when we were doing Krishna lunch in Gainesville, it takes about 20 people every day to do this operation, at least. And you have to have servers there, like a buffet, but you have to have servers. So sometimes in the summer, there aren't as many devotees because things slow down. You only do about 200 to 300 plates a day. So because things slow down, a lot of devotees travel. And so occasionally they'll hire people, to come help serve out Krishna lunch. Or sometimes in the winter and the fall, they'll hire people too. If we're extremely, extremely swamped and devotees are sick, because if devotees are sick, they don't want them going out on campus to serve, because then, you get other people sick. So anyway, one time, they hired this boy. He was in high school. His name was Jake. He was 16, and he was just looking for a summer job. So he decided to come serve Krishna lunch for the summer. And so they told us beforehand, he's just coming to work. We need his help. He's an atheist. Do not scare him away. Because sometimes people in their enthusiastic preaching would scare people. Like there was this one guy that came with a African American girlfriend, and somebody said some stuff. And anyway, so all right. So anyway, he came and he started taking prasadam, and he was taking prasadam every day with us, and we were just kind of making friends with him. And then after about a month, he went from atheist to agnostic. And then by the end of the summer, he was chanting 16 rounds. So this is an example. Krishna says, you can't fix your mind on me. You perform sadhana bhakti. You can't perform sadhana bhakti. You think you work for me. He just came to work for the devotees. So sort of, but yet he got purified by this process. So everyone can be engaged in Krishna consciousness in some way. Everyone has some part to play. ultimately in this Sankirtan movement. Prabhupada, he really, really propagated pushing forward the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya. And one of the ways he did that was to encourage the devotees to distribute his books. And at one time, because he was really, really preaching about this and saying things like, if you dedicate your life to the distribution of my books, Lord Chaitanya will personally come and take you back to Godhead. You've all read that statement, right? So there was a point where I was in the book that I'm reading that some of the devotees, they wanted to stop their other services and just do book distribution full time, just like in the art department. But Srila Prabhupada wrote them, and Srila Prabhupada said, no, you should not stop your service, because everybody in some way is contributing to the Sankirtan movement and the service that they're doing. So just because I am preaching about the importance of book distribution, that doesn't mean that all the other services are not important. So we see that we have many services in the temple. We have deity worship. We have cooks. We have people that clean the floor. So how are pujaris contributing to the Sankirtan movement? Who knows? Yes.
Inspiring the devotees to go out and preach. See the beauty.
Inspiring the devotees to go and preach the beauty of the deities. All right. How is the cook contributing?
Keeping the devotees alive.
Keeping the devotees fed. Yes. Yes. All right. The person who cleans the temple, cleans the floor, washes the pots, how are they contributing?
In the temple and Sattvagun.
Keeping the temple in Sattvagun, because if you're not in Sattvagun, you're not going to go out. People in Tamagun, people heavy Tamagun, they don't go out. They don't preach. In fact, they bloop. They'll bloop eventually, Also, yeah, so it helps out. Also, people come. They don't want to come. You don't want to bring guests to a very dirty place. You want to bring guests to a very clean place. All right. Even just the person who fixes things, how are they contributing to the Sankirtan movement? Maintaining. That's a very important service. In some ways, having someone who can fix things is in some ways more important than anything else, right? So you can see how all these people are contributing to the Sankirtan movement, and they may be devotees. But then you might have people that aren't chanting 16 rounds or following all the regs yet. Maybe they're just like they have some medical experience, or they might help keep the devotees healthy. Of course, we're very fortunate to have a nice devotee doctor to help us, who's contributing to the Sankirtan movement by keeping us all healthy, and in many other ways too. Or you might have somebody who just comes and offers some other skill. Maybe they have some architectural skill. They can give devotees advice on how to build some temple. So in this way, these people are also contributing. So this is what the Prithvi Maharaj is saying. Engaging in this path. Eventually, whether you're following completely or not, if you're just contributing and somehow you get purified. So when I was a little bit younger, and I couldn't go out on books full time. Sometimes I could do it, and sometimes I couldn't. But I was in a situation one time where I couldn't do it. So I gave some money to print some books, and later the devotee called me, and they said, "Thank you so much for sponsoring 3 cases of books. Because you sponsored these 3 cases of books, we took them to the art walk, and then we trained up 5 other people how to distribute books, and then." Because these 5 other people had distributed books, and because they were already sponsored, they didn't have pressure to get as many donations. They could just practice, because the books were already paid for. So whatever you get is just profit after that. So they were able to, train them up in this way. And then these devotees went on to distribute more books. And then also, if you just sponsor a case of books, you get the benefit of distributing them yourself. You get the benefit as if you had distributed them. So temples will do this sometimes. They'll try to get you to buy a set of Srimad Bhagavatam, or if you already have one, they'll say sponsor one, and we'll distribute it for you. Because if you sponsor one and we distribute it, you also get the benefit, even though you didn't directly distribute it. So this is the beauty. This is the wonderful thing about Krishna consciousness. Just engaging in devotional service somehow Eventually one gets purified and attains to the supreme destination. So therefore we see here, this is one of Prithvi Maharaj's very important instructions in telling his citizens, I don't know what that is, please, please, please follow this path, because not only will you benefit, but then I also will benefit. So, I have to stop here. So, Jai. I think we might be able to do like one question or a comment, guys. Yes.
Somebody else has one. In Krishna consciousness, everything is equal here, but the one little thing I thought of was that it seemed like that process you were talking about, it seemed like knowledge was down towards the last of the processes. Right. But then in the Gita, doesn't it say that like cultivating knowledge is a higher form of worship? I feel like I've heard that from a guru talking about how like, and I was just thinking about it, I was thinking like, so it's all equal, but then I was thinking how could, in a detail-oriented way, knowledge be higher than, worshiping the deities. And I was thinking, well, with knowledge, you could help people come to Krishna. But I don't know. There's probably not much to say about that, but that's...
So what's your question?
Well, there's the two opposing seeming things, because in that process, it seemed like knowledge was lower down on the ladder. Well, you mentioned it last.
Oh,
you said if you can't do this, you do this. If you can't do this, you do this.
Yeah, if you can't, Krishna is saying that if you can't work for him, then try to cultivate knowledge.
Yeah, I would think it would be like, knowledge. If you can't do that, cultivate work.
Yeah, okay. But it said Krishna is saying if you can't do this, then work for me. So if you're working for Krishna, then you have some idea that there's a higher power. Or things like the cultivating knowledge. It might not necessarily be like bhakti, but it's encouraging people to cultivate knowledge. Maybe that you're spirit, you're not the body, or cultivate knowledge that the results of your actions are ultimately temporary. Like at the end he says, give up the renounce the fruit of your activities. So there's different degrees of knowledge.
What's the Sanskrit word he uses for knowledge in that verse?
Jnanam.
Usually when that word's used in Bhagavad Gita, it refers to knowledge. Try to understand you're not this body.
Yeah.
That's what he's saying. Try to understand that.
Yeah, like I was saying, I try to understand that you're spirit.
That can become, that's like Jnana Yoga. It's not Bhakti Yoga.
Right.
Yeah, I just thought of material knowledge too, Right. The professor that comes here, he was talking about his job and how he loves it. And he was like, I don't know if I should. And I was like, well, that's great. You're doing your Dharma, you're raising a Krishna conscious family, and you're helping bring people to, a platform of intelligence, which it seems like in some cases that could help to lead towards Krishna. Always, not always, can be puffed up.
Possibly,
but
yeah. Anyway, does that answer your question? Okay, go through Srimad Bhagavatam Ki.